Welcome back. If you notice, the game looks a lot different. It looks a lot prettier. I installed a bunch of visual mods. I'm using MechJeb just for some basic stuff and some quality of life things for building. So the tech tree hasn't really changed at all. It's the same challenge and level of progression to get through the tech tree, but everything's going to look a lot better. And yeah, I'm excited and I hope you are too. So let's get right into it. The last time I was having a lot of problems with the car that I was driving around. The tires were always exploding, and the batteries were always dying, and bad things were happening. And yeah, it just was an all around not very fun time. So I'm redesigning like a ground vehicle from scratch using a rover core as the basis of the brains behind it all. Right now, I'm just like placing the initial couple tires and some basic science modules, um, and some storage for science experiments and as much science as I can put on here. So the Science Junior with the mobile processing lab, and later I take this off because it's kind of cumbersome and I don't really need it. But yeah, I'm just trying to pack as much stuff onto this vehicle as I possibly can so that it mimics kind of the style of thing that I had before, but maybe controls a little bit better and isn't so cumbersome to drive around. And yeah, that's the goal of this whole thing, is to be able to drive out into the farther out biomes and anomalies and try to squeeze a little bit more science out of the world and get farther in the tech tree without ever leaving the atmosphere, I guess, basically. So this worked pretty well. It was driving around and, it was maneuvering okay. I seemed to do the wheels correctly the first time around. And yeah, I picked up a little science right here and I was able to drive out into the fields a little bit. I tried to see if this thing had enough torque to ride up this hill, but it was too heavy, so I didn't really like that very much. It made me want to go back, and that's part of the reason why I went back and removed the mobile processing lab. But here my batteries died and I didn't realize because my UI was disabled because I was just enjoying the new beautiful views, and I wondered why I started riding backwards, and then I was like, I forgot to put solar panels on this thing. And I figured it'd be good to have a Kerbal with me as well if I'm going to be getting rid of the mobile processing lab. So I was beginning to redesign the front end there so that a Kerbal could like sit in the little command seat in the front. And then I'm about to remove the mobile processing lab here. I'm having like a mini epiphany and I'm like, I don't really need this because I'm not going to be doing long-term experiments initially. I'm just going to be like trying to get the big chunks of science that are out there. If I want to later, I can set up a bunch of bases with mobile processing units and such and hire scientists and all that stuff to really squeeze more science out. But for now, I just want something that's more mobile and can get new science as quickly as possible and to gather as much of it as possible without having to drive out there several times and do the same long drive multiple times to squeeze all the science out of it. Putting some power generation on here so I don't make the same mistake again of not having any of that with me. And this is it. I make some small modifications to it, but like this is basically it. It started off really well and was able to drive around and pick up speed, and this thing was getting a max speed here of about like 25-30 miles an hour, something like that. And I felt confident that it was stable and there were no big issues, and my action groups were working for all the science modules. I thought, I'm going to put a real Kerbal in the driver's seat of this thing and see what happens. So I go back to the VAB and I just make some like minor adjustments to the visuals, and add a ladder, just tightening up the solar panel so everything looks flush. And I wanted to make a way for the Kerbals to be able to get back on. The ladder got stuck here. I don't know, it got stuck inside the landing core and I had to like control Z to figure it out. But I realized I only really need 2 goo containers. So yeah, just did a little redesign there and put a Kerbal in the front seat, and I think it's Jeb. And yeah, that was working out great. But it was kind of slow and it can't get me far very quickly. So I started messing around with rotors and like air surfaces to see if I could make a propeller, because it's not a rocket. I could, propel myself into the skies and not use a rocket. So I'm using like a 64-way symmetry glitch here to put 64 winglets on a rotor, and I'm going to control it with a battery. I thought about putting a flight seat on here for a second, I don't know, but then I just went with the robot core. It blew up immediately. So I decided not to do the crazy symmetry and just to do simple winglets, the bigger ones, and spread them out a little bit. And this happened, and yeah, I learned more about the torque problems that exist with rotors and the wing surfaces. So I decided I would make a plane, and this is what I came up with. It's got two rotors with alternating spinning directions for the props so that it negates the torque and all the science you need to do any experiments. This recording started off great. I was taking off and the frame rates were okay, and then when I checked the recording later, the reason why it looks so glitchy right now is because it was only recording like one frame every couple minutes, and this was like a 40-minute long mission because this plane flies pretty slow. If you can see, it's only like 75-ish meters per second the whole way there to the inland airfield. I was trying to land here so that I could get a little bit of science from the airfield and get the milestones for discovering the inland airfield, and also for discovering the little Easter egg of the like first ever spaceship that was designed at this old airfield. And yeah, if you explore this area, you'll get the milestones too, and if you know what I mean. But yeah, so I just parked the plane here and scooped up a little science, and yeah, I think I'm going to use this plane as kind of like a platform for future missions. If you want either of these crafts, the car or the plane, I put them in the description. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Think about subscribing. See you later. Goodbye.